Alrighty. Okay. First and foremost, I'm still holding this this blue snowball microphone. So my friend who I appreciate for watching this show. I appreciate you all for watching this show and let me indulge myself in my thoughts. And again, I'm hoping that if it doesn't entertain you, at the very least, I hope that you find value in it. And I hope that you use it to better yourself, because that is the intention. That is my intention. And one of the people I follow is Mark Manson, wrote the book, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I recommend you read that. He does not pay me, but it's a great book. Any case, one of the things that he says when he posts, the things that I really like, is that, he does this for himself as well. He needs to be reminded. We need to be reminded. So at the very least, one of the things that you need to do while you are embarking on your journey, as I am on mine, is to have constant reminders. We are creatures of habit. We need these sorts of things. So hopefully the voice in which I give you the reminders sound like your own voice. They resonate with you like Mark Manson's does mine. And, you like to hear my version. There's a ton of folks that I listen to as well to keep me reminded, to keep me on my path, to keep me motivated. Jim Rohn isn't one. Rumi. He just is poetic and just tells you about the beauty of life, and and reminds you to be grateful because of life's beauty. Who else? Wayne Dyer. My wife and I, we both listen. She's constant with it. I need to be a little bit better. Who else? Jordan Peterson has become a good one as well. He does a lot of good things. You have to pick and choose the things that you like. And, some of it you may not like, some of it you will. In any case, the point is, this is part of why this is useful, is you need to be reminded of. And it's so, man, I imagine the folks that had to do it without like this constant self-help, man, those are the ones, man, like, who were just driven. And so that brings me to the point of this episode, 11 kilometers per second. 11 kilometers per second. Once again, for those who are joining for the first time, hopefully somebody has shared this with you because they think that you can benefit from it. 11 kilometers per second is the speed at which something must move in order to escape Earth's gravity and soar into the outer spaces outside of our atmosphere. And I use that name and that metaphor to signify that we need to find the things that are holding us back as human beings. All of us have some common things that hold us back as human beings. They are manifested within us in different ways. And so each one of us has to go through our own journey. We have to constantly be examining ourselves and, the things that we are uncomfortable by. They are indicators for us of the things we need to push against. The two things that I talk about is fear of judgment from others and our addiction to comfort. These are two things that are intended to actually help us survive. Fear of judgment from others allows us to be social, allows us to cooperate, and in fact allows us to build and grow and do all the things, beautiful, wonderful things that human beings do. And and our addiction to comfort is a mechanism that our body uses in order to promote survival, not expending too much energy. But as human beings, we also have this imperative for us to excel, exceed, to be, in God's image, as they say in the Bible, is to create. We are all God and made in God's image, or whatever it is that you want to call it. And so we also have that imperative. And so our unique selves have to be brought out so that we can create in our own direction. So This is why you are here. And so you're here to find that and do that. So this I'm going to make a 2-part series. Another thing that's been going on for me this week is that I had a friend who passed away, and I had some reflections about that I want to share. And I won't, there are some thoughts that I've had, but were further crystallized as I was thinking about him and who he was. And so this 2-part that I'm going to speak to. One is on, desire, and drive. And so this episode I'm going to call, this may change as I think about it, but, this episode I'm going to call The Reason Why, you're not succeeding, maybe, or the reason why the advice you were given is not resonating. I started off talking about this blue snowball. I don't know if I finished the thought. One of my friends also said, he's into the movie industry. He's a sound guy, amongst other things. And he was like, it pained me to watch you holding this microphone. So he sent me a link to Amazon to get the stand for this. And so it's coming. So, in the 3rd episode, because like I said, it's a 2-part series, I'm going to record both, release them separately. But in the 3rd episode, or in the next, the 3rd, 1, 2, and then the release, you'll see, me with a stand looking a little bit more professional, just a little bit. Now, what did I want to say here? Yes. So why, the things that they tell you to do is not resonating and why you're not doing it. Okay. And then the second one, I'm going to, talk about authenticity. And so let's start with the reason why you're not succeeding. So this gentleman, I'm going to not name names. Obviously, those of you who are watching who know me and know my friend, who are connected to my friend, knows this guy. But I'm going to keep some things private, I suppose, for those to those of us who knew, and only us who knew. But what I can say about him, he packed the room. The funeral that I went to, he packed the room, and so the impact that he had was profound. And like I said in maybe a couple episodes before, he was somebody that, and I've had this conversation with so many different people too. He was somebody that inspired me, and I typically, I have some hate in my blood, like most of us do. And typically I would, potentially see somebody who is doing something well that I want to do, and potentially be threatened to the point where, and in fact, we just had this conversation because there's another friend of ours who was displaying this. He specifically occupied the role. So this guy didn't occupy the role that I typically play. I would say that the role that I feel I play in the places, I come in. For me, I feel like I come in and I add insight and intellect. That's what I feel like I play. This guy, he was, the life of the party. He was the one who would come in, and he made it his business to make sure shit was fun. He's coming in and that's a difficult thing to do. That's a difficult thing to do, to put that responsibility on you. But it's also, because you have to be on, number one. Number two is because when you're on, you're being judged. Again, the fear of judgment comes in. You're being judged, and the ability to either be secure enough, and this is how actually he came across, and this is why it was admirable, secure enough in your ability, in your judgment, such that when people respond, it doesn't even appear to be that you are insecure about it, because you know exactly how to, even if you might be. And this is why I'm phrasing it this way, and I'm being careful about it, because the thing is, like, it appears sometimes that people are not insecure, like, because they're responding in a certain way, but it also could be how my friend, another friend of mine, described it, like a coping mechanism. And they say this about comedians too, like, a lot of them are actually pretty, like, depressed, or not necessarily depressed in the formal sense of depression, but like just sad and embittered or angry or whatever the term is. And part of the reason why they're constantly making jokes is because, it's a way to cope with it. And so that's why I want to draw a distinction between whether or not they were insecure. But they appear that way. And that is something with our inner critic that we live with, our like daily, shoot, if there was a word for secondly, like every second, we're dealing with this inner critic, because we're constantly in fear of, okay, what is everybody thinking about me, and am I worthy? Right? That is our charge, so to speak, in this world. Like, because we are social beings, because we have this programming built within us as human beings to want the approval of others, we come in, trying to determine whether we're worthy, and we're trying to use multiple different types of indicators. And, did I make enough money? You first start off as, are my parents responding to me? Did I get abandoned? My parents leave me. Does that mean I'm not worthy? Then is it my friends? If I go out and try to talk to people and I'm telling them, who I am in one form or another, or I think that's who I am, or I'm telling them who I am in one form or another, are they going to like it? And if they don't, am I worthy? At this point, it's gotten to the point where, am I getting all the likes? So definitely go and like my shit. But any case, no, thoughts are rambling. Any case, the idea of putting yourself out there, because we know the pain around not getting that love and the constant criticism in our own heads, we feel inspired by it a lot of the times. And this is why, those who go out and perform, the artists, the comedians, or whatever, this is the value a lot of times, not just the value, but one of the values that they bring that gives them the rewards that they get, is because putting yourself out there is a difficult thing. And so what he did is he did that. And that's a tough thing, especially if you're not necessarily as secure, but even if you are, you're lifting a heavy thing. And so, any case, my friend, I was inspired by him despite the possibility of being a hater. I saw him as someone who, he wasn't just the person who took it upon himself to lighten the room, to make people fun, but he also took it upon himself to be good, like kind, and like he wasn't positioning himself to make himself look bigger and better than you. Like, he was really like, hey, I'm gonna come in and help. Hey, what do you need? And talking to you like he was a good person, you know what I'm saying? And so that, like, man, my cousin met him for a couple of days, not even a couple of days. We went on a trip together, and, we were staying on different places. And my cousin, spent some time with him, and from the minute they started talking, like, he felt that connection. So my cousin also flew out from Florida to pay his respects, because this is the kind of dude that we're talking about, where, he didn't make you feel like he was trying to one up you, despite, because there are folks who are out there just like shining or whatever and just need the attention. And they also are like, standoffish, and they're playing these games. And though he was neither of these two. He was fun, so therefore the energy gave you permission to be yourself. It was like, oh, if you can go out and do all of those things and put yourself out there and be silly or outrageous or crazy, then I can do it too. Or I can at the very least feel more comfortable being myself as well. Because a lot of times we don't know whether or not to be, because people will judge you. And so he made you feel that kind of comfort and the energy, especially. I mean, we're all people of energy, but you'll see the people who are able to do that and grab other people is the ones that are constantly putting out their energy. And I can imagine sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you're not necessarily in that mood. Sometimes people aren't. But paying that price of potentially having it not work sometimes was great for the times that he was able to do it. And so he brought a lot of people together, and I just, I was inspired by that, wanted to learn from him. And so, his untimely passing was, for so many reasons, just a big loss to everyone, but to me. It was, I wanted to make sure I gave enough weight to it so that you could understand exactly what kind of person we're dealing with before I started to jump into the topic that I want to talk about. Another thing is that, I was inspired by, and I was, I continue to learn about him is, the way he set out to go do the things that he wanted. He's the guy who, just basically like was in control, I feel like, of his family. Like, he wasn't somebody who was like super wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. So he was someone who, was more, I want to say, relatable or more accessible, or, just like within reach for many of us, and like, some of the, celebrities, for example, that we might be thinking about. But the concept and the idea was the same. And he was in control, like, of his family. He set his kids up. He set his wife up to basically be in a good position. And, he always had ideas of what he wanted to do, and he pursued it. And so it's just, it's just something that, as I think about him and why it is that we don't succeed, why it is that we don't go out and pursue things, is he just displayed a sense of understanding what he wanted. That's what it is. And so the question is, why is it that you don't succeed? Or the question, why is it that when someone says, you got to go and do something, it doesn't resonate? Particularly when they say, hey, you got to set up these goals. Man, there's been so many times when people will be like, the first step is you got to set up these goals. You got to be like, okay, where's the house that I want to live in? And just write it down and, be specific, because this is what it is. And so the reason it doesn't seem to resonate, I think, is because we don't truly understand the idea of desire. And I want to say that's most of us. And again, this channel, this endeavor of mine, 11 kilometers per second, is for everybody. But I do focus on Black men because I know myself. And I think for me, there's so many Black men who don't really know what desire really means. They don't know how to go to want, I want to say, right? And here's why I think that is. I think that men are told to go in, become great, right? They're not told to go in necessarily go and get all the things you want. I think that is something that women are given the permission to do for the most part. Let me explain why. Right? So women, are essentially the way that society has structured it for the most part. All of what I'm saying is generalizations. Let me just start off with that, which means that there are exceptions. But for the most part, generally speaking, women are told, okay, you get you go and find your man, you get your status from your man, who is, going to be the top man because what you're bringing to the table is your beauty, your nurturing, your ability to bring kids and nurture them into this world. And the man is going to come in and provide. And what he's going to provide is all the things that you may want that represent security. So now it's, he brings you the home, and now you got to make it beautiful because, it represents what he was able to attain. Even let's say, for example, some of the things that men would quote unquote desire, the cars and things like that, all of that are just not necessarily the things that he wants. Those are likely the things that indicate to others that he has that status. What we have to do is attain a status, which is why, you'll have a lot of dudes who are like, just constantly working. Like there are men who from time indefinite were doing most of the dangerous jobs, going into the coal mines and coming in like before it gets light, and going to the coal mine before it gets light in the day, staying there the whole entire day, coming out when it's dark. Like we sacrifice our whole entire life because our job is to provide. Like a lot of us, don't see our children, because I remember my dad, for example, like he worked 2 jobs. He would leave like at 6, come back at midnight. We never saw him, but he was providing. And so we're not necessarily the idea of asking somebody for something, right? Like, hey, go get these things for me because this is what I want. No, you got to go and figure it out. You got to go and get it yourself, right? Whereas somebody could be like, oh, here's something that I want. Let me ask, like a woman could go and say, here's something I want. Hey, I can go ask my husband for it, or I can go ask, my brother, or whatever the case may be. Whereas like the idea that we could, as men, be like, hey, I'm just going to go ask my woman to go and get that for me, or I'm going to go ask somebody else to go. No, that idea is foreign for us. And so we're not taught to desire, and desire is not just interest, right? Like a lot of people confuse the two. Desire is necessary for success, but it's not just interest. In fact, like in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is something that a lot of us have read or have heard about if you haven't actually completely read it, is, it's one of the more famous of the older books that talk about how it is that it is within our power to become wealthy. In Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, one of his first, if not the first, if I remember correctly, criterion for success is desire. You have to actually know what the hell you want. This is why people tell you to set these goals and be specific, but we don't actually know what the heck it is. It's not just interest. Interest is the spark. It is like, oh, I'm looking at this and I might be interested in it, right? this seems interesting. Let me go, is that something that I might like? That is the spark. Desire is when you actually set out to go and get it. Desire is something that you set out to go and get. And there, for all of us, there are some things that we set out to go and get because we have learned that this is what is us. This is the thing that we're going to go and do. There is some special thing like, I don't know, for some people it might be gadgets. Like for some men it might be gadgets, right? The latest whatever little technology tool. For some men it might be, the TV. For some men it might be their cars. And they say, okay, here's the thing that I have permitted myself because this is me. I'm going to go get it. But it is not something that is all encompassing. And so we don't associate this thing that we have allowed ourselves to be able to say, I'm going to go and get, to see that this thing is the same thing that applies in every other aspect of your life and every other aspect of desire. For me, one of the things that I know that I've been doing since I can remember is like, I'm gonna go out and get something that looks fashionable, that looks like, that's, I'm into my fashion, how I look. I'm gonna go out and go and get it. Like if it's something that I feel like is going to help differentiate me, because this is one of the ways that I speak without having to speak. I make a statement about who I am without having to do it. I can be, I can be loud without being loud, and so like that's one of the things that I do, and it's different for each person, but when you think about that, it is what separates some things that you might say that I've got to go and figure out how to do it, and other things that you're like are saying, okay, this is not necessarily something that I can afford, or this is not necessarily something that I'm willing to expend the energy on, and all this other stuff. Oh, this is a little bit bigger. It's not and it's not necessarily big or small, because some things are very expensive. Some people will go out and figure out how to save for all this stuff, but it's one of the things that they have decided, okay, I can have the desire there and I can go about executing on it. I can go about making sure that I get that done. And it's that for everything. You start, like many other things that we have as interests, we'll go and immediately start to think about why it is that this is not reasonable, right? It costs too much. It's not necessarily that valuable. Who, really needs it? All this other stuff. A lot of the times, it's what you're doing. If like some guys, they'll go and figure out how to do it. And this is, my friend, his wife talks about how, he, when he was in high school, used to work at Giant. He would go and buy her like little trinkets and things like that, and sneakers and all that stuff. And some guys, they would come up with reasons why they can't do that for their girls as well. Oh yeah, I gotta go and figure out how to pay the bills. I can't go and do that. But then they'll also go and buy, whatever it is that they think is important, whether it's like, their own shoes or whatever the case may be. And yes, you may say, okay, well, I mean, yes, there's a limit to everything. Maybe he's able to provide, but then not necessarily buy everything. He has to, take care of himself as well. And so the point here is not that I'm not trying to, say that those who do that are wrong. What I'm trying to say is, the point here is there is a way when you start to desire that you can go about setting out to get anything that you want, if this is the thing that is important for you. And that takes the training of desire. And one of the best ways to do that is for you to do the small things that you desire. First, understand that you already are doing it with some of the things that you feel are important. And then take that concept, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get that done. and then start to do some things that you want to do, that you're interested in, but have already told yourself is not feasible, and start to do a little stretch above what you are. So not the biggest things first. Like, this is why I think, again, people don't like, they tell you go and set out all of the things that you want in life, the house and how it would look, and go and get the vision boards and all this other stuff, and it's way down the line, and you don't even know how, to desire yet, because your brain is going to tell you how all of this is impossible. What you want to do first is you want to do this a bit of a stretch, because what that's going and try to get it accomplished, right? And I want to just say that part of the reason why we don't do this too is because we fear failure. We feel that, like we try to do it, especially if this desire involves other people knowing about it, right? Something that, or it involves other people being part of it. So one of the things that, I'm trying to put together is like a men's event. And, I've been trying to do this for a couple of months, and I'm like, and for one reason or another, it hasn't gone through. But one of the biggest ones in my mind is like, what if this thing doesn't pan out, right? Like, what if people don't show up? What if, all this other stuff. And when it does involve some form of potential for failure, we don't want to experience that. We don't want to have to deal with that possibility. The first step is do a thing that's a little bit, that stretches you a little bit, that stretches your understanding of what it is and what you can get accomplished. And if you're not as successful as you think, I think at the very least, as you would like it to be, at the very least, what it does is it teaches you that you can go about actually setting out to do exactly what you wanted to. And you'll also find that in the fear that you had, whether or not it's as successful as you wanted, the fear that you have, like, of everything coming down and crumbling because you didn't get the success that you wanted, is not as bad as you thought, right? It's at the very least, right? It's like, okay, well, that's fine, because I'm still alive, right? I can go back and do it again and learn from the things that I should have done to help make this successful. 9 times out of 10, though, if you do put in the effort, and this is another thing that we fail to understand about desires. Like, sometimes, for example, when you are really in a dire need, it's like you have to pay the rent this month and everything is, falling apart. When you're really in a dire need, you go all out, right? Or, there are certain projects that, I slack on and I just don't do anything. But then there are others I can remember, the urgency of it, like some kind of time thing, or I feel like, it's down to the wire, and you're sitting here like just putting in all the effort that, you probably should have earlier on. But whatever the case may be, or it's not necessarily even that you should have been earlier on. It's just the nature of the project, where it's like you're giving it your all, whereas some others that you haven't. And because of that effort, not only do you feel good afterwards because you put that effort in, but you also get results. And if you really truly put in the effort, that same kind of effort, more likely than not, you're going to get a good success. But the fact is that, when you fear the potential failure, a lot of times you don't want to invest that kind of energy, that kind of emotion into it, because, you don't want to be disappointed. And you're, in fact, increasing the likelihood of you being disappointed. And so you know, all these things that I'm saying is easier said than done. And again, as I said in the beginning, it's, you know, one of the reasons why I do this is to remind myself. And so I'm also trying to tell you, like, you know, start to rack up these little wins that you can understand that you do have the ability to desire and to want. And so once you accomplish one thing and you get comfortable with the other thing, and then all of the desires that you have are now going to be accessible to you. They're going to be some things that you can feel like you can do. And that's when you can start to put in the goals, because you'll start to have more ideas about what you want. And that's when it'll be more crystal clear as to the things that you want. That's important, because when you do are crystal clear about the things that you want, and you have desire, not just interest, but you're like, okay, now I'm going to set out to go and do it. That's when the goals are better for you. That's when you know exactly where you're going. That's again, you know, the thing that gives you motivation, that dopamine. It's like, I have direction. I said this in the previous video where I talked about you know, pain and, you know, being okay with no, the video was called embracing you know, the feeling of feeling out of place, the feeling of being out of place. And in that video I talked about dopamine and how it is just the feeling of being going in the right direction. And you know how if you don't feel like you're going in the right direction, you feel like, you know, anything can happen, you could be lost. And that's one of the things that causes you to feel, you know, depressed, right? I have no idea where I'm going. We need to have that direction. And when you do, this is when you can, like, when you know where you're going, it makes following your goals a lot easier. It makes executing on your goals a lot easier, because you can get up, like in the morning, you get up and like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to be working on, because I know what I have to do towards like when you feel that sense of rush, because it's like, I know exactly what I'm working on. Like when you're directed, when you know exactly what you're trying to do, when you have this project where it's like, this is what I want to work on, you know. So when I wake up this morning, I'm like, I know exactly what I want to talk about. I can get up, you know, and start having, you know, these thoughts and start to relay it to you. And so this is exactly like knowing what you want to do starts with, or doing what you want to do, following through, executing, you know, being motivated to execute starts with you not having a desire, not just an interest. The interest is, oh, this might be interesting. The desire is, I am going to set out to go and get that. And when you have that desire and you've now are like, I'm going to go get that, every time that you know that one of the steps within your goal to go and get that is you have to act on it at that point, because it's come, like that milestone or that step is today. I know, like maybe, you know, days before you couldn't take a step on it because you're waiting for something to happen or someone to come or whatever. But you know that this day something can happen. You're more directed, you're more focused, you're more energized, and you have direction. And so that's what it is. Develop that desire, practice the desire, and start there. So start with the thing that is in your mind that you are thinking at this point may not be doable. Don't start with the biggest thing. Start racking up the wins, that smallest thing that you're like, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if I can do it. And go out and get it. And then start with the next one. Eventually, you'll be able to start writing down all of your goals and put them into action. All right. Thank you for your time. Until next time.